All right, so it is 5:30. We usually give people a couple minutes to come in late, so we'll get started in a couple minutes.
We're not going to take a dog and run.
Good idea.
The next meeting is. Come on, it's the first week.
Yeah, I can't go.
I know.
Didn't I go to a lecture they had at the steel
Oh,
plant
yeah.
museum?
Yes.
And they're doing it on the sinking of the Sullivans this month. So I was like, I really don't want to miss that. And but
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna do that instead. And that's so usually, because that's first week and the second week, so really through. And then today was around the world. We're gonna do that around the world thing. I'm supposed to be in Australia and they canceled that. So I'm like, that's 1,000 here. I didn't go to lunch because I was sick.
Start off with all the sort of visuals. Then I've got a timeline slide. Then I've got the full.
No, it's just. So I'm usually the second when am I?
I'll go through.
Because you'll get.
Yeah. I'll turn it over to you. Things
It sounds like.
How's everything going?
Thank you. Where do you want me to start? Just clarifying.
Doing a good job.
Oh, fun.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, no.
Be cool.
All right, so some folks might be joining us as we go, but we'll get started. Respect everybody's time. Everyone's got busy lives. So welcome. Here we are. We're in quarter 4 of the Olmsted Community Alliance, District 2, our South District meeting. As usual, start with a little bit of introductions. So we're just to sort of keep people remembering everyone's faces and names and the whole purpose of why we're here. Then today we're going to have a special section, 30 minutes focused in on the playground discussion. Through the great generosity of our Erie County Council member John Gilmore and our Common Council member Chris Scanlon, we've pulled together a significant amount of money that you see in the brief handout, brief updates handout. So we're gonna, as we get the wheels motion and that money sort of falling into place, we're gonna start the community engagement process here today with a focus group. In addition to other opportunities rolling out through the remainder of the year. So exciting times and looking forward to good conversation there. Then we're going to go back to our usual meeting standard stuff with project updates, some discussion items, and then the brief project updates. Really, you can refer to again that handout in terms of all the projects and some of the greatest hits. Then we open up the floor, as always, to park issues or concerns of the day, and then we'll follow through with next steps and head out. So with that, I'm Brian Dole, Director of Planning and Research. My partner in crime here, Z. We sort of lead this process of the Olmsted Community Alliance, but our leadership team with the Conservancy our Executive Director, Stephanie Crockett, who I believe is going to be hopping on the Zoom and joining us for this conversation. But from time to time, you will see our Director of Park Administration, Greg Robinson, Katie Stevenson, Development, and with Bob Stokes being out getting a hip replacement for the next couple months, we are in the capable hands of Jimmy Coyle as our Interim Director of Operations, moving up from District 2 to the head honcho. So in his place, we brought one of our very capable foremen, gave him a promotion. Jonathan Clark is the sort of interim supervisor for District 2, and his right-hand man, Dennis Martinez, here in District 2. Other folks you'll see in the room and around the District 2, we've got our golf manager, Chris Carroll, handles the front end of things. Our golf superintendent, Pat McIntyre, taking care of the golf course. And in the back of the room here, we've got our curator for South Park, Margaret Lapp, and she'll be hopping up front in a little bit. But then other system-wide folks, for tree issues, Mike, for building issues, Charlie, and our circles and plantings, Eileen. So hopefully you get to see these people in your day-to-day use of the park. So again, the Olmsted Community Alliance in a nutshell is really quite simple. It's just about communication. It's about open dialogue, making sure that people's concerns are getting voiced in an open forum. We're working through those issues and resolving them for the betterment of the park and betterment of everybody. In terms of a process we incorporate into this effort, our capital project implementation, we call that our 5-year plan. But again, we want to support and engage. That's what all the projects are. Just basically keeping people engaged in the development of the park projects from design to implementation as we go. But also just, again, raising awareness, continuing our outreach, and hopefully encouraging people to get engaged in volunteerism and stewardship for the parks. So with that, we'll sort of move into our agenda and our progress. So again, as I said, we're going to start with the focus on the playground. I'm going to be turning it over to Z in a few minutes to sort of walk us through some community input. But just so you guys know, and from a reference standpoint, we're not out at the playground, so we wanted to bring the playground into the room. So just in terms of, if you can't think of what the visuals are, we can reference back to focusing in on, again, the existing equipment, the existing space, that being for the 2 to 5 year olds. We've got the pieces of equipment towards the front end of the playground, a couple of views of that to see what that looks like. And again, that little separate piece, the board and the horn. Here comes Stephanie into the room. Again, our pieces of equipment in the current playground for the 5 to 12 year olds. And again, visuals there to reference back to, if need be, of the 2 major components for the older kids. Then as well, we've got lots of swings in Kaz Park. So again, just a reminder, we've got the swings for the young kids with the parents push them, and then swings people can use on their own, both on that side and then closer to the creek. But again, we want to be thinking about things like the furnishings and the seating. So right now, we've just got a lot of picnic tables in pretty poor condition. So those, again, dotted all around. You can see tons of them in and around the playground. But again, we want to open up the conversation on that. And again, get people thinking about access and surfacing as well. We've got really only one direct pathway connection into this playground network. And again, some other pathways in and around with access to the equipment. But again, we want to open it up. And again, that sort of blowout view of the larger area, sort of a larger conversation of access. So with that, again, these are just at our disposal if we want to reference back to them. Wanted to sort of just get the playground into the room. So just sort of give you some context about the process. So again, here we are, we're doing the conceptual design level. That involves survey. There's information. If you haven't taken the survey, we're going to have information about the links to that. And again, this is considered focus group 1. We've got another one scheduled. You'll see the date on that if you don't know already. Then the next step, again, through into November and the end of the year, the detailed design with the playground designers. So we're going to bring them in, the equipment based on this initial input, and sort of start talking, literally nuts and bolts, I guess, in terms of the equipment. Then, once with all those decisions behind us, it is actually a quite lengthy time for the manufacturing and delivery of the components. So it's important we move this design process along expeditiously so that we're ready in the season to sort of move on and sort of get everything here. And then we're really sort of looking and hoping for installation, right in the middle of summer is the plan at this point. So this is the process in a nutshell. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Z to sort of walk us through some initial sort of general focus group questions. And I'll be taking notes on the other side of the room.
Thank you, Brian. So before we get started, I'll be passing around some Post-its and pens. So if you, oh, awesome, yeah. So if you feel like you are not sure or you don't want to speak, don't want to raise your hand and say it in front of everyone, you can also write your comment or question or issue down and paste it on the board after. We'll put it at the back. Okay, so just to pass it around, this is mine. Thank you. So before we start, we just like to do a little bit of introduction. And if you don't feel like you want to participate in this program group, feel free to remain. You don't have to participate, it's totally fine. But we are hoping that for as long as you use the park or the playground in some way or another, whether you are a passerby that walks past the park and you see kids in the playground, and you can, from your observation, you can identify whether there's anything that should be fixed or could be improved on. Your input matters too. If you're a caregiver of a parent who brings your kids there, especially if you're a parent or a caregiver who cares for children with disabilities, your voice is important, and we want to make sure that we try our best to meet as much as possible the needs of the kids. That's the priority. So if anyone would like to share a little bit about yourself and why this playground matters to you and age range of your kids, if you have any, or would anyone like to share a little bit about that? Yes, sure.
Okay, so I live in the condos on Potters Road, and I have grandchildren ages 3 to 10, and we use the playground on a very regular basis. I think one of the biggest issues isn't even with the equipment itself, it's the amount of garbage that's around the equipment. So, a daily pickup of garbage would be great. I engage the grandkids while we're there to at least pick up, 3 or 4 things of garbage before we even get started. But it's a great playground. The location is great. It's right by the creek. They love to feed the ducks. And, the space itself has a lot to offer. So.
Thank you. Any other?
I live right on Tuscarora, right across the thing, and my grandkids, we go there all the time. They're 4 and 5. And, I mean, I know he said the things like 5 to 10, but they're already outgrowing like it, and they're 5 years old. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think they need bigger slides, and just different things. Like they like the zip lines, like the Hamburg playgrounds have, and those things that down there in the water, they have the swirly, those seats that swirl around, stuff. They like those, all those. I don't know. It feels like there's
Sure, so more equipment for a wider age range.
yeah. I just feel like there's not that much for the older kids. Like, I mean, she's 5 and they're like, oh, they're bored of it. You know what I mean? Like they want something bigger. You know what I mean? Like some of the schools and stuff have some for little kids, and then they have a bigger part for the bigger kids. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. Do you know of any examples in the South Buffalo neighborhood that we can reference?
No.
If anything comes to mind at all.
Well, down at Canal side or down there Gilder Beach, like they have stuff, but there's slides and stuff are not out at in Orchard Park at the Eggers.
Yeah.
School. They have a little, and then they have a bigger one for the bigger kids. Stuff that's super nice all the time. Yeah.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, are there any other playgrounds that people frequent in this neighborhood other than this?
Is there any other ones? I don't think
I don't think there is another one.
There's one at the bluffs.
No,
There's one at the bluffs.
The ones are-
There's one over by the bluffs over on Seneca Street there. It's a smaller,
Oh, yeah.
The ones on Tiff,
That's it.
the little playground there.
that's where the school used to be.
I mean, the ones on the outer harbor are pretty awesome,
Yeah, that was.
but that's not really this neighborhood.
Okay, so talking more from like walking distance from your house where you live in this neighborhood, this playground is very important to the community.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you said the location is so important, it's right in the center of it. So that makes sense and brings it even more importance that we make it better for the community. Any other thoughts on what the playground means?
Yeah, as someone who does not have young children, but who walks in the park or bicycles to the park every day, that playground is important to me just because it is enjoyable to see youngsters, to hear youngsters, and to see that. One concern I have one primary question I have is, what age range does your organization see using that equipment? To what extent can you have equipment that's larger, as is suggested, without attracting teenagers to hang out around there and to use it? And I would think that somehow or other you need to, I think, define who you're focusing that playground on and make sure that the equipment is not too young or too old for the primary group.
So we are hoping that through this survey and through the focus groups like that, we can identify the major top 2 or 3 major age groups that use the playground. So one of the survey questions, if you haven't taken a survey yet, you can take a look at it. We do ask like, how old are the kids or children that you bring to the playground? What age range are they within? And when it comes to like project design and designing of the playground, we will take that into account. And we are not experts in building or designing an inclusive playground, which is why we are hiring an expert, a playground expert basically, who can give us advice from that perspective based on the survey results and what we derive from the focus groups to make sure that the playground is a constructive amenity for the residents and not cause more.
The issue, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The issue of inclusivity reminds me that, and I've mentioned it, I think that past meetings in the Bryan, that one of the concerns I have is that we already have people driving on that path that's not meant for motor vehicles to drop, their children, their equipment, their picnic lunches, whatever, on that path. And I find that very unsafe. But with that in mind, if you're increasing inclusivity, which I believe is very important, one has to decide how will those children, if they have mobility issues, going to get there without bringing vehicles right in the midst? Because I can't tell you how often when I'm on my bicycle, little kids don't look up as they're crossing that path. I'm amazed that they're with parents who don't look up as they're crossing that path, perhaps going from where the equipment is to where the sprinklers, where the splash pad is or whatever is going on. And so again, inclusivity to me raises the issue of safety as far as vehicular safety, people accessing the playground.
Going along with what she was saying with the garbage, I take my granddaughter, she's 8, and because they do a lot of the free lunches there, the tables, bees, there were so many bees this summer that my granddaughter was like freaking out. This is where the picnic tables are that are in the playground area. And then the other thing is that she's fairly short and small, and the areas like under the swings were so dug out that she couldn't even get onto the swings. Like I had to help her get onto the swings. But one of the positive things that I hope that they continue with, that they don't have at the waterfront, is leaving the swings. Like the waterfront has like 2 swings there, 3 swings. And there's always kids standing in line waiting to go on the swings, where at least we have a lot of swings, and that's a good thing. So, yeah, so that would be those things that the bees were really bad.
And the bees were present. So you're saying because they have free lunches there.
Well, I'm sure that was part of it. There could have been, who knows, nests or whatever too. I don't even know, but there were just so many bees.
I think
But they were
everywhere.
initially
In
in
the
the
Yeah.
we had them for a couple Sundays at the farmer's market. There was nothing you could do. We just had to wait until they ran their course. We tried everything. I think it was throughout the whole area.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just a bad year for bees.
Right. Okay.
I don't I don't know a lot about bees and insects and everything, but
How about birds?
yeah, no birds, yeah. Talking to some people, the type of bee had something to do with the rotting wood.
Yeah,
On them as
that's,
well.
yeah, that's what I think it was,
Yeah.
more of that. They were definitely like into that rotting wood.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it got so bad, like I didn't even want to sit on the bench while she was playing, you know, I mean, I just kind of sat on a swing once I was able to get up onto it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Yes, no, all of these are really good. So I kind of see the three different aspects so far. And I mean, you guys actually went into the next question as to what are some challenges you face. So the challenges kind of go with accessibility, so accessing the playground. We can have the best playground ever, but if you can access it, that's an issue. So ensuring that access is inclusive and making sure that it fits the different needs of different people with different abilities. Amenities around the playground, right? Picnic tables,
Benches, there are many benches.
There's no benches really.
Right, there's no benches.
Benches.
Should there be picnic tables that are child sized also maybe? If you're gonna have kids there, they can't really sit at that huge picnic table.
okay. So amenities, and then, so it's the playground equipment itself, access to the playground as well as amenities around it. Any other challenges? Yes.
Just to follow up on what they were saying about the benches, I have an 8, 6, and soon to be 2-year-old. And we're in the park constantly at the playground quite a bit. And with friends in the suburbs have visited some others, whether it's at Chestnut Ridge, Hamburg. We actually took our deputy commissioner of parks out to those 2 playgrounds to look at those as well. And one thing they do with benching, they almost use it as a perimeter for the entire thing and frame the playground right in with
So the
one
kids know-
continuous bench.
so the kids
kind
know
of
where
thing
their
to
area
corral the kids.
Yeah, that's good.
How about restrooms? So I don't even know, as many times as I've been to the park,
Sure.
I don't even know where the restrooms are.
Okay. So they are.
Yeah, I mean.
Are there restrooms?
Are there yeah, that's a question.
Yeah,
Are there
that's
signs?
right.
But are there signs for, you know, there's
We do need
no,
signage.
yeah, when you're at the park, there's no
Signage.
indication of where the restrooms are.
The shelter
So
house. that
there
beautiful
are
shelter
restrooms,
house.
so it's like you said, putting.
I don't
signage
think they're,
up.
are they ever open?
Yeah.
They are, yeah, I
I
haven't.
think because they're all the time.
Is the
seen
shelter
them.
house the thing that's behind the casino
be-
towards
they're
the
the
baseball?
baseball
net?
net.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've not been open
One
when
of
I
those,
was
That-
there.
Historically beautiful thing.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's where they serve the lunches out of, I think. That's where I've seen them do that. So out of that building.
Are the lunches served out of the casino building?
No, out of
or
that little
the
building that's
shelter?
behind
Oh,
it.
okay.
Well, they used to. I didn't go there this summer, but in the past, I've seen it out there.
So better signage for restroom directions, restroom hours at the playground. That makes sense. If you're parent, you bring your kid, you need to go to the restroom, you can't think anymore. Just need
Yes.
to go there. Yes, okay, so better signage of hours and directions. Any other challenges that you can think of? And feel free to add on later on the blue post-it. Okay, so. Next question. So what are your top priorities for the new playground? And I mean, this question is more framing it from a timeline perspective. So let's say if, like this project itself is, once we go forward with it, depending on funding, depending on timelines, supply chain and all that stuff, it will be a, whatever happens to it is not an end on its own. Like there can always be improvements made to it. Let's say in next year or a few years later, where maybe you want to add something new. So it's more of like right now, what are some top priorities that come to mind?
With the
based on-
flooding too, the flooding when it goes, you know, there might be, I don't know, some kind of a berm or something. Because when it floods, you know, there was big chunks of ice and everything. I don't know how much damage they've had in the past, but they have to kind of think about that too. You know, if they're gonna expand the size of the existing playground.
Is the I'm sorry, I have a
Yes,
question.
go ahead.
So is the footprint of the playground going to change? Is it bigger and the smaller, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was
What's
wondering, with
the-
that ice, those chunks of ice.
I think as we bring the experts in and start, they're gonna start to sort of take initial feedback and start to suggest some equipment arrangements. Then we'll really see how big the footprint is. But,
Okay.
you know, with the resources we have available, I think, you know, it's gonna be a good it's gonna be a great playground, so. But again, the exact footprint will be dictated by the experts.
As far as flooding in those chunks of ice, number one, a beautiful, amazing sight when it happens. No, it's amazing. I can't imagine how dogs respond when it suddenly is there. But my understanding is that that portion of the creek was meant to flood, that area is meant to be a retention or detention when water, it goes there for that purpose. Just as the berm along the other side of the creek, that's Army Corps of Engineers dealing with flooding, and they decided that certain areas where there's a slope on the other side of the opening that's meant as a spillway over the large fields there to hold water. But I think that a lot of that functioning is happening on the playground side also. That the flooding is that having quote green space and not having buildings and stuff is part of the I never remember if it's detention or retention of the water, but it's meant to temporarily hold it there. And therefore, when there's a creek backing up, you're going to get for a short period of time that ice coming over and
Well, I'm
doing
just
that.
mean as far
But
as
I
if
just
expanded up the ice smashing into the new equipment.
well, okay, the equipment has to be sturdy,
Yeah.
Well, actually, the
resilient.
sluice is on the other side of the parkway, on that side. So the water is supposed to go on the other side, not necessarily on the playground side.
Right.
But well,
There's a sluice on that side,
Oh, I understand, and I
and that's where
mentioned
it's
that.
supposed to go. I don't think it was meant to go on a playground.
Yeah,
It goes
so-
in the playground and then over towards the golf course.
And it even
And
goes, and it's gotten to the casino at times also.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of lay out the historic shoreline. The playground is on historic land, thankfully, but either side of it were historically sort of inlets off to the back of the casino and closer to the bridge, and then obviously the other side. So it's kind of like only in major events should it get itself to the playground. There should be 3 or 4 other areas that are more release valves.
No, it's there.
sooner than that. So
I live right there. I see it all the
Yes.
time. It gets there even on minor. The ice comes over it, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I walk there every day. Yeah, I don't think it happens often.
Either way.
I know when it gets flooded in Powder Road, so I know.
Well,
2 people that
That's a
couldn't
different
come wrote
location.
me notes and I lost the notes. So I'm trying to remember what they said. They both have special needs, children. So their questions were saying that some of their priorities, they mentioned the playground at Chestnut Ridge and also the new one that was all over the news this weekend in Tonawanda that just opened, that had a lot of things for special needs children. So they were wondering like if the ground, what they're gonna use to maybe make it soft for kids falling, and then signage, and then also for children in wheelchairs, if there could be a couple things for them to just wheel up and go on things, stuff like that. And I believe that's what the one in Tonawanda has. And I can't remember what else they wanted me to.
You might
Probably
think
sitting in
about
my car, the note.
If you do see them and they have more comments, feel free to direct them to us and we can.
And they can take the survey online,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so the intention is to definitely create a playground that's accessible and meets the needs of children who are on wheelchairs, who have the ground be made in a way such that if you're on crutches, you can access the playground. Like it wouldn't be a surface where it's unsafe. For the last question, estimated construction to begin in summer 2023, highly dependent on how fast and how delivery of equipment and things like that. So would you suggest delaying, knowing the summertime is like the peak time for the playgrounds? Would you prefer that we start, when do you think the construction should happen? Should it happen during the summer? Should it happen after when school starts? What do you think as community members? Some people have
Can
told.
it happen in the spring? Or like
So-
early spring?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably.
No, you-
So far, it seems like the equipment will take about 6 months.
I was gonna say,
Will they work on the weekends?
Well, when the playground
Do you?
is.
It's under
No, I'm just
construction.
wondering, because when we have the farmer's market there, we're right there. So if you work during the week and it's not on the weekends, we'll be fine. It won't disrupt the market. That's what I was thinking, that's all.
Yeah, we'll still, the potential will certainly be contained to the playground site. But, unfortunately, to your point, we're hurrying up to make these decisions, but it's gonna get us to summer. The question is, what, the folks in other groups have told us is like, get it done as fast as possible. Like,
Yeah, but
don't-
it's better to get your ducks in a row and
I
do it correctly and just do it like in the fall.
Right.
And instead of rushing it and doing it halfway.
we're not gonna-
So is the splash pad part of the playground? Is that, or no? Is that just a separate thing?
The focus is the playground.
Okay,
That's where our priority is, we'll, the conversation's open.
because my question,
Go ahead.
so my question about the splash pad is, I mean, the splash pad gets so much use over the summer. For a lot of folks, for a lot of kids, it's their only relief from the heat. So if the splash pad could remain accessible while the construction's going on, I think that would be important, especially if the playground's gonna be out of commission for the summer.
What's the anticipated amount of time for the construction? Any idea?
Again, I'll leave it to the expert to confirm this, but I think if we have all our ducks in a row, this should be a 1 month
So
project.
that only needs 2 or 3.
Yeah,
But, again, if it's all designed up and there's no surprises,
yeah.
we can be pretty efficient.
Sounds right.
That's reasonable.
Mhm. Yeah, they're not building a building.
To your point about
They're
the
putting
splash
stuff
pad,
up. Yeah.
there's a component of the funding from the city side that's gonna make some repairs to the splash pad as well.
Great.
But keep it the same size and intensity basis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that-
but it
just make all
floods.
the pipes work.
There's some flooding
Yeah.
coming off of it and they're gonna repair that to remediate that.
Yeah, that's a great feature.
Oh, sorry. We have someone on Zoom who has a question. Sarah, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I just was curious. It doesn't sound like a Kaboom, community build project is planned. And I just wondered if that's definitely off the, off the table kind of a thing.
You explain what you mean?
What's a
What's a
Yes,
kaboom?
We can explain it. So thank you, Sarah. So a few years ago, we did a community build at MLK Junior Park where it's community members, I think over 200 community members came out together to build the playground. And I think that's what Chestnut Ridge did as well. We had community members come out to the playground and they all built the playground together. From our experience, it was really fun in many ways, but there was also some setbacks, I would say, where there was a high capacity on our staff. And it kind of took away our staff from throughout the park system to focus on one project, which at that point in time, we did not realize. So we were learning from past experiences. So moving forward, we are hoping that this playground would not be a community build. Am I right to say that?
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I think to that point, it doesn't, because you would think, you bring in the community and it's gonna be less work and it's gonna be cheaper. It's just different work. So paying a contractor to come in, they know what they're doing, zap, they're done, versus the coordination and the planning. And, it is a fun day, but it's just as much or maybe even more work to take the community build approach. So, I mean, it's I think something we're thinking there's reasons not to do it.
From a
Turn out.
capacity standpoint, it does not really fit right now at the moment, maybe in the future for other projects, but at this time with short staff and COVID and all that stuff, it was challenging. So hopefully that's understandable.
I'm sure that the parents and grandparents know better than me, but from walking and biking in the park every day, it seemed to me that this is going back to what the best timing would be. It seemed to me that when September came and the schools opened, I even saw more use of the playground there. People coming after school and going there. And maybe the sense of we don't have a lot of time left to use in good weather, but it, well, that's true. But it just seemed to me that it was at least as busy, and it's some days busier.
Probably really no great time. to
During
do it.
September.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, there isn't,
Because it gets
because you can't
used.
do it
I
in the,
mean,
can't build it in
Spring
the
not be
winter.
too moist and
Yeah.
then,
Winter is
then
too
the
cold.
summertime people use it, but
Yeah.
the ground is hard.
So and I agree. My point is it doesn't make a difference. Get it done
Yeah.
quickly and effectively.
I wonder if they could incorporate something that you could use in the winter in the playground. because it is.
thank you.
helpful.
That's a really
Good
good
idea.
point.
Love it.
Yeah.
You know,
Good
we
point.
do have.
Now, come up with an idea now.
I know, well, that's who we got experts for, right? Maybe a luge, you know?
Oh.
Right off the
Right
bridge
into the
into the
creek.
ground.
Into the creek.
Somebody sues.
Yeah, and into the baseball bowl.
They're gonna sue over it, you know, you can get hurt on a playground in the summer as well as.
And that's kind of tied back in,
Sorry.
just in that last comment in terms of like priorities and opportunities to sort of expand our thinking is like, there's a lot of things that it's like getting great useful equipment. But then as we, as ideas come up about like this project and sort of the definition of the playground can start to expand and sort of grow into sort of gathering places, quieter areas, winter uses that aren't necessarily meaning zip lines and things,
Right.
but
Yeah.
sort of rounding out the program beyond the equipment itself.
I'd love to see an outdoor ice rink, but I don't know. Probably not possible.
We used to sled in
That was
the
so much
golf
fun.
course
There was so
along
much
the eighth,
fun
along the
going
eighth
on.
hole. They still do that?
Oh, yeah, my
Yeah.
grandkids do it all
They
the time.
they could turn that into
All the
a little
time.
something different, I guess. I don't want to do winter stuff.
They go down
Not many hills in the park. You could do that.
Right, that's true.
over the golf course, has a bunch,
for your house.
right off the
You
eighth
can only
green,
use your bathroom.
right off the eighth green. Not.
You got anyone else have any other comments or things that you feel like should be included in the feedback session? And everything here will be shared in a meeting with our playground designers, so anything. So if you don't have anything else, and if something comes up later, write it on a post-it, paste it on this. Brian is putting it at the back of the room. And also there's, of course, the online survey. So this is a little flyer. I have a bunch of flyers at the back too. Feel free to grab some, bring it to your community, your workplace, anywhere, cafe, drop it off at Dodgers, and tell the community to fill it out. And we definitely want to create a playground that is meaningful to the residents and meet the needs of our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, there's also a virtual focus group coming up on the 21st. So if you know anyone else who would like to attend, like the two community members that you were saying who have children with disabilities, please ask them to attend the focus group if they are available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, council member, I meant to offer the floor to you at the beginning, but if there's anything you want to add?
It's your show, Brian.
Okay. All right. So thanks. That was great. Again, just sort of the first of several steps. So hopefully, encourage people to fill out the survey and as well join us again on the 21st. The next step from that, based on the feedback we got, we're going to go talk to our expert consultants. We're going to get involved and we'll be back with you in terms of scheduling.
Brian, can I ask one more playground,
Yeah.
a question? Is the concept that whatever is put there is meant to be outside 24 months, 12 months of the year? Okay, 24 months of the year, 12 months a year, or is there a place to store things if there's anything that would be useful and fun, but is not something that withstands, the elements of winter and stuff? I just tossed it out because I think, I remember as a kid, a lot of things seem to, in some ways, disappear at the playground. And I assume they were in the garage somewhere.
Yeah, I
Is
don't know,
that-
are the swings pulled out or?
I mean, as we talk it out, I think, and if there's anything that becomes specific, we'll have to sort of put it through the gauntlet of, is it going to be durable enough for public space, or is it going to end up in the creek, or, if it's not
Well, that too.
solid and, securely
It's a
fastened.
dumping ground.
In addition to, big chunks of ice knocking things out, obviously there's,
Kids.
The issues of vandalism and things. So I guess as those ideas come up, we'll sort of put it through that test and make sure we're not throwing the money away with it not being durable. But I think at this point in time, anything's possible. All right. So again, you can reference updates on a lot of these things to the handout, but just sort of running through a variety of projects we got going on that we want to talk in depth about, bring some information. We have consultants on board They're helping us assess and renovate the South Park Clubhouse. So we've got some preliminary plans that we wanted to run past y'all on that project. So again, this is existing conditions, again, starting with what we've got. So we got a pretty worn out building, but it's a very cool building is what the architects are telling us. And obviously anyone who spent time in there knows, but in terms of the facilities, you know, from the concession to the just restroom facilities, pretty rough shape. So just at the very basics, plan is to do a total overhaul of the 2 restrooms. We have the funding in place for that, but we are doing full design planning with the anticipation of finding additional funding. But there's a lot of, again, great bones with the stone fireplace. Actually, the wood paneling of the building, while it was painted, it is a very nice wood, apparently. So the idea is to strip that back. There's also a drop ceiling, a false ceiling that we're going to expose and find out, you know, what's like above, I guess. But again, planning a just sort of general overhaul. But again, you can see some reconfiguration of the concession space. But again, in general, not changing a lot of things. Additionally, in the short term, we're going to be utilizing some of the open area for some of our arboretum interpretation. Nothing, again, extravagant, but sort of enhance this building for multiple uses and sort of year-round use. This is part of the plan. But again, the focus is just ADA accessibility, clean and useful restroom facilities, you know, the unglamorous work of parks management, but very key and important. So again, those two corners will be renovated. As you can see, construction planned for summer of next year. But again, additionally, some exterior repointing. You can see some window sills are going to need to be replaced. Some of the window treatments and the security grates are going to be made more attractive, let more light inside the building. Just some basic stuff there. The foundation, some repointing. And again, we're going to sort of focus in on the front of the building and the sort of covered patio, veranda area, and enhancing that. Most likely a full tear off of that sort of, actually, you know, relatively chintzy overhang, and sort of do something a little more appropriate for the building itself in replacing that. So that should be nice. And then just sort of, again, just sort of how things are currently, with a little more of a 3D view. So again, we're not planning to make any major changes in this other than just make it nicer and really sort of let its actual quality historic character shine a little bit more. Any comments or thoughts or questions about this project?
Any landscape?
So this project is probably, based on the initial sort of cost estimate we're looking at, going to eat up all of our budget just focusing on the building. But again, you know, with our staff, we're going to be able to do a little bit of enhancement around the building, but that I think would be most likely something we build into the next phase of the project. So nothing planned at this point.
Get some donations from the
Jam
botanical gardens.
Donations from the
Couple
botanical?
donations from
Yeah.
the botanical gardens for the landscaping.
Oh, well,
Ask them for a couple.
you mean physical plant today? I'm sure they're doing their fundraising for their master plan, so that's
Yeah.
not giving us any donations. But plant material, we have our MLK greenhouse, which I mean, maybe at some point in time, I'll sort of share more system-wide all the things we're doing there. So we certainly have plant material to bring out. You know, I think once we get through the heavy construction in and around the building, that might be the time to sort of start to think about, you know, beautifying the edges.
How old is that building? You know?
How old? Oh, shoot. So there was, I want to say it's teens with the original construction, and then there was enhancements made during the Public Works Administration era.
100 years?
Was that?
100 years? Those teens?
I think so. In terms of like the core of the building, again, there was an addition and expansion of the building during the sort of the public works and admin time.
Was it always there for the golf course or was it used for something different?
My understanding is it was sort of tied to the introduction of golf in there in terms of its location and its use. It was really to my sort of wrapping my brain around the history of the park. There would have been no purpose for building in that location until the first tee was set up right next to it.
Wow,
And that was in 1915.
1915. There you go.
Man. So I think it's time for renovation. I don't know. I'm gonna stick my neck out.
I just have a question as to, I don't really golf, so I don't really know the purpose of a clubhouse, but I'm wondering, that kitchen area, is that just for people to go in and like just start cooking because they're hungry, or is there gonna be somebody there? Is it a restaurant or?
Yes.
What is it?
Yep, so it's been a concessionaire opportunity that it's been tough to keep someone interested in terms of
Okay.
running a business out of there. We're thinking some upgrades to that, and I think a little more use of the
So
building.
a
and maybe
business
for-
would come in there and offer
Yep,
food to
yeah.
patrons?
Do they have alcohol there?
No.
The lockers.
Yeah, they bring their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
In their
wondered.
golf
BYOB.
But the intention is not to get into like, grease traps and all that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
gonna be pretty light. in
Yeah,
terms
chips
of,
and stuff
in
like
terms
that.
of what's available. But I think it'll be a
So
more
like a
attractive
grill,
space.
there will be a grill there and they can cook hot dogs and hamburgers. It's not for people to just go in
No,
and use.
yeah, that'll definitely be something we.
It's more than a
concessionary
microwave.
to
Okay.
offer.
Brian, when you started this part of the conversation with the building is cool, and I was thinking temperature, but I'm realizing now you meant vernacularly cool. Shows your age, I guess. But yeah, well, but that leads me to,
Mhm.
is there actually heat other than the fire, then I don't even know if the fireplace is usable, and can that building be used year round? Can it be kept comfortable enough to actually use it year round?
Yep, so in terms of what we'd hired the consultants to do, again, we don't have the money up front right now in terms of construction work for next year. It's just gonna be replacing and fixing the bathrooms, but they'll still be planned till the water get turned off in the winter. But in terms of what we're designing and hopefully fundraising for next phase would be, turning this into a year-round facility that we can keep warm and pipes will be bursting and we can be programming throughout the year. Yes.
We're gonna rent it out for, event space or something.
Yeah, I think once we have this as a viable space, we'll start to think about the program and how to use it, maximize it. All right, any other questions here? Apologize, there was a little bit of a miscommunication between myself and the engineering department that I missed this meeting, but apparently there was a public meeting about Abbott Road on the 13th of October and their phase 2. Which is continuing the project from Meriden to Red Jacket and then all the way up to the city line. So while I didn't make the meeting, I did get the presentation, so got a couple highlights to bring to this group in terms of this project moving along. And hopefully I will hear well in advance on the next one so I can help promote. Again, with this project, the objectives, they're really just sort of improving the deficiencies, but a focus on pedestrian safety, making it look nicer, maybe look cooler. I don't know. And then
How do you mean
traffic
cool?
as well.
The wintry feeling that we get.
Just say it's cool out there now.
But again, in terms of the elements, resurfacing, ADA everywhere, replacing curbs, replacing sidewalks, replacing lighting with LED, which if you've seen a street that's been converted over to LED light, it's really quite incredible how well they can get light where it's supposed to go and really shine it pretty clearly. And then replacing traffic signals, doing streetscape amenities top to bottom. And then what I'm going to sort of dive into a little bit more and would like to talk a little bit about is just the idea of a roundabout at that park entrance point of Red Jacket, Abbott, Potters. So just your cross section. This is your typical cross section. They did apparently reference points where they're looking at bump outs as well. Not being at the meeting, I'm not sure exactly how extensive that incorporation was. Anyone who was at the meeting, again, feel free to sort of chime in as we go through it. But the last couple slides I've got are related to, so here's sort of replace in kind of way for the current intersection. Again, park entrance at the bottom. And Abbott sort of making the turn off Red Jacket. And the idea of a roundabout feature, again, I imagine there's a lot of improvements that could be found in traffic flow. And this just happens to be one of those kind of intersections that is big enough to sort of take a roundabout relatively easily and not impact surrounding property lines, et cetera. So again, this hasn't been reviewed by our design review committee. I got this information yesterday, sort of just bringing it to the group. So I will circle back on this, but the last couple slides are just in terms of where they are on the project. They're looking to be completing final design, through the winter and into next spring, with construction right on the heels. And then, looking at about a year and a half of a torn up streetscape to the city line. But certainly at the end of it, a much improved corridor. And again, I'll circle back on this, but if you get any additional follow-up, the project manager is right up there to answer any questions, which I'll certainly be following up with them on that. But any thoughts or discussion, feelings? Yes.
Just some information. So anyone who's wondering why it would take a year and a half, it's not a straight year and a half. It's more than a construction season worth of work. If you see what they did on phase one, this is almost 70% longer, this amount of work. So it's not one season, but it's less than two. So what they would do is start sometime next summer, work up until the end of the construction season and stop, and then pick back up the following spring and use the majority of that time. So it's not straight through that it would be torn up for, just so people are aware. Some of the other information they provided with the roundabout is that intersection it experiences 4 times the number of accidents intersections of its kind do throughout Erie County. And so as a traffic calming measure, I think it would be helpful. Obviously, with a roundabout, some of those intersections now you're coming in 2 lanes. It would narrow it down to 1 lane, so it's 1 lane coming in at a specific point, and you're getting off at a specific point instead of 2 cars coming in at once or things like that. Roundabout versus circle. This is a roundabout, not a circle. I now know the difference.
What is the difference?
Yeah.
So a circle also has additional traffic calming measures like stop signs. So like if you think of the ones on McKinley, it is designed for you to stop because of the crosswalk and things like that. And then you proceed in. Where this would be a situation where it would just be
I go out
yield.
to Hayward Village all the time and they do not know how to use them at all.
Yeah.
They're awful. They're awful. They literally are the worst. They are,
I
people do
like
not know
them.
how to use them at all. They
I'm
literally-
sorry, I like them. I'll take a roundabout over an intersection any day.
So how do
Yeah,
people
there's
cross if
there's
there's no
pros.
stop?
So if you see in the middle there, there's pedestrian islands in the middle, so you're not crossing the whole way. So you're kind of
Yeah,
crossing
because I
halfway to be safe and
walk
then
over
finish the
there a
way.
lot and that's bad the way it is now. So anything would be better than what's there.
Yeah, that is very helpful to only have to worry about one direction at a time, not have to be both ways.
Yeah.
It's true.
Chris, I know
Something to
I'm
think
not
about.
allowed to talk because I talked at the meeting last time about that. But I just thought of that, the bus stop. So because you're going down to 2 lane to 1, you know how close that bus stop is to where the circle's gonna
We'll
be?
have to
Is
probably
that gonna
move
be
it.
moved?
They'll
If
have
you're
to
coming
move
from like dog ears there,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's really close to where it's gonna
it
be.
might. And I know there was a comment made the other night about the NFTA not being
Oh, yeah,
part
yeah,
of the
yeah.
conversation with phase 1.
But
which
I
is
was
not
thinking if a
true.
bus stops there,
So I'm sure that would be CHA, the company doing it, communicating with the NFTA and making sure that everything flows and fits.
So that would be right where they're going down to one lane, from 2 to 1 where the bus stop is, right?
What's going on with Reddington's? What's that going to be?
I had to do something with it.
It has
The
been
sign is
purchased.
gone. Yeah,
Oh,
the
it
sign
has?
is
It has
gone.
been purchased. There's a plan I'm not at liberty to discuss
Okay.
as of right now. I think you'd see an announcement in the next 2 or 3 months.
Oh, really?
Parking lot.
Any other thoughts? Again, you know, it seems like there's still a bit of design to do, so this isn't a final plan. We think other opportunities to weigh in. They find their way to a final design next spring. Right?
You mentioned, oh, I'm sorry.
I wanted to go one step back before you got to the roundabout, not traffic circle, the roundabout. And I wanted to ask Chris, what's been the city's experience with bump outs and how they do or don't impede plowing and things like that? It always seemed to me, how do you plow when it's there? Similarly, what happened to, how about speed humps? What has that done as far as snow removal?
I can only speak anecdotally. I wouldn't have the data or anything like that, but we've had them in the park for few winters now.
Is it a few,
Yeah.
just one?
No, it's a couple of winters now. They've
Is
been
it
there.
two?
So they've held up. So hopefully they're educating the plow drivers. We had the winter on Abbott so far. We didn't have any issues. So hopefully they're aware of them. As far as bump outs moving on to the second phase, they're looking at the signalized intersections like if we finalized on phase 1, and then a couple additional, they're talking about maybe one at the corner of Eden and Abbott in front of Imperial, because it's a dangerous turn. People park up into Eden. I wouldn't say to the corner, I would say into Eden. So there's, I'm not putting one right at the corner there.
And
just to kind of make it a little
and there's no bump, none of this is bump outs. What's happening here? What's is that sidewalk? What's the wide beige color?
Yeah, so that would narrow down into one lane there. So you're only one car is entering the roundabout at a time. If that was the final design.
It seems like beige would be all concrete.
Correct.
Okay. One afterthought. As long as we don't have anything that resembles Seneca Street, where suddenly all traffic turning left, which had been in the middle lane, had been in the main lane, and you have cars suddenly veering to the right to proceed through, whether it's Casanova, that is so dangerous. I never ever bike. I try to bike every day. I will not bike in Seneca Street. And is there anything similar to that happening on Abbott?
Well, it's different on Abbott because first of all, it's probably, I would say it's probably more difficult to ride a bike because there's no dedicated lane. It's just not wide enough. It's only, I think it's 42 feet wide curb to curb. It's just not wide enough based on the regulations you have to have for a vehicular lane, parking lane, things like that. But I think to your point that you brought up earlier, you'd have a tough time. Are you talking about at the roundabout? You'd have a tough time going around someone because it's narrowed down between both.
Right.
Not a bump out, but widened sidewalk and the pedestrian island in the middle of each lane. You'd have a tough time going around.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm thinking of is how dangerous it is when suddenly the lane that you're driving it changes from, I'm going straight down Seneca Street, and suddenly, and you can't see the pavement markings, it's either gone or covered with snow. Suddenly that lane that's been the straight lane, you suddenly have to, it's left turn only, and people suddenly veer to the right into a lane that covers the bike path, but it's dangerous for cars also and pedestrians.
Again,
no matter.
This is very preliminary design, but I think to your point, for example, if you're coming from Casanova Street
Okay.
this way,
Okay.
headed south, show it's right here. So when you go by the hospital, it becomes 2 lanes again.
Okay.
And I think it's 2 lanes. So once you get to Choate, there'll be a turning lane, or you could go straight, and then you'll start to see markings to slowly narrow it down, and then finally a physical barrier that would narrow it down.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, so we're not gonna have this, I guess the dangerous thing is Seneca
No
Street.
quick changes like that.
Okay, great. And I've never known how to pronounce it. I've only been here for 7 years. It's Choate. I've never known if it's code or chode or thank you. I'll forget it next time I want to say it. But
I know there was like a lot of complaints about bump outs on the first phase. I'm a fan of them because people are driving like idiots.
Have the
down that
traffic
road.
sticks that are on my wall.
Yes.
They were shed.
I saw them on the roof of some of the stores where they were. Is there any chance, like, there's a lot of areas on Abbott, it seems like sideways are extremely wide. Like at the corner of Edgewood, along the apartments, and whatever that. A bump in instead, taking away some of the sidewalk space. There's never that amount of people that, you know, if you take a look at near the corner of Edgewood, it's a super wide sidewalk. So instead of cutting into the traffic lane people are all up against, bumping them in.
To create a second
A wider
travel lane,
road, to
wider
make the road a little bit wider.
Or even parking, you know. Because right now, like, the medical facility between Mercy, medical facility on a corner, and then the apartment building right near Edgewood's corner, it's a super wide sidewalk, so, you know, you could afford to lose some of that space and make it space for parking, because people are always there, parked there.
Yeah,
Double
I'd say
park
if
there.
you've got a specific point, I'd say reaching out to Tom Duke.
Okay.
This is getting a little off the reservation in
It's
terms
something I
of
can
things
afford
we
to
can control in
keep
terms
on.
of parks, but certainly, I think he'd be
Makes
interested in that
sense.
kind of input in terms of where, you know, certainly if you can get a few extra parking spots, it would benefit the commercial corridor. I think they take it. I think if you widen roadway and then just the travel lane is confusingly wide, whether it's like, is this now 2 lanes or 1? I think that would be something you wouldn't want to introduce, that kind of confusion. Yeah, I think opportunity to get that input in. With this, I'm going to turn the floor over for a minute to Margaret. I'm just going to give an update on the Arboretum.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Margaret Lapp, I'm South Park Arboretum Curator. Really happy to be here with you tonight. There's a lot happening at the Arboretum. I know tonight's schedule is jam-packed, so I'm just going to give you a brief update. So I was brought on here as curator January 2021 and started the full Arboretum restoration process, which is an 11-phase approach. We completed phase 1, which was improving the safety of South Park this past spring. And we culminated that with the Arbor Day planting. I think maybe some of you were there. If you didn't join us last year, please feel free to join us this year. But now we're in phase 2. I'm happy to report we're making really good strides. And the first update for you is that phase 2 is heavy. The pivotal component is the creation of a nursery complex. So what that means is essentially a new gateway for the Arboretum. So if you're familiar with the layout of South Park, the geographically where I'm speaking is the southwest quadrant of, and I apologize, I don't have a map up here, but if you're familiar with the Ridge Road corridor and that access point to South Park, that's essentially where the nursery complex will be sited. That is in line with the historic historic background of the nursery complex. There was the superintendent's building there, several greenhouses. So we are reimagining that site. And the crux of it is to create a container nursery. So that's the picture up here. And really the opportunity of this nursery is great. Its ability for us to more economically raise plants and to hold them and store them within this container nursery until they're ready to be planted.
Are you
Yes.
talking around South Park Lake?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right behind the Botanical Gardens. then,
Correct.
basically.
Yes, that's a great question. So just so everyone's aware, Frederick Law Olmsted designed the conservatory, as we know, the Buffalo and Erie County Botanical Garden and the Arboretum as one entity.
but I believe it was in 1981. The Botanical Gardens was purchased by the county of Erie County. And we now have that lovely partner within the park. But yes, surrounding the entire Botanical Gardens is the Arboretum, which is essentially, that's my role, is to restore that beautiful Arboretum. So I wanted to provide that piece of, that quick update for you about the nursery complex. In addition to the actual nursery to stage and grow these new accessions for the Arboretum, we'll also be adding, I do not currently have office space at South Park, which I would love to have in the future, so that's the goal, as well as to have space for our operations team to store equipment, as well as some programming opportunities in terms of educational programming for people of all ages, that type of thing. So with that, I'm working on an RFP, a request for proposal. That's in the very nascent stages, but the idea is to attract national attention. Of course, anyone is, any architectural or engineering firm that meets the correct qualifications is eligible to apply. So we'll be developing renderings or drawings, and then we can take it from there. So I hope to give you an update in the first quarter of next year.
So you're talking about like just building a new building somewhere that's like an educational building to have office space and have meetings and
Kind of in the middle of the
Kind of.
golf course.
Not in the middle,
but on the other side of the golf
Yes.
course there on the Ridge Road side.
correct. That's
Okay.
exactly what the nursery
Where
complex.
there's a road that comes
It
in
used
there.
to be
I
a
don't
road.
think it used to be a road, but it's not a road anymore, like that area.
Yes, so if you're familiar with the Lackawanna Public Library.
Yeah, right behind it.
It's right, yes, it's, if you're heading west.
Don't even
towards the lake.
tell me about directions.
Okay, you'd be heading towards the lake. How's
I
that?
don't- Exactly.
Right behind the baseball diamond.
Right, right.
But to your question, no, it won't be located in the middle of the golf course. It will be on
Off
the
to the
periphery
sides.
of the park.
Yeah.
So if you're
Yes.
going through the drive to the park, would be on the right side,
Mhm.
behind the
Kind
final
of
line.
across from the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So there, sky's the limit in terms of this facility, but we have outgrown our storage space at the Botanical Gardens in the basement. So it's really paramount that we identify some storage.
So is the Arboretum also going to be part of the Botanical Gardens then?
That's
Or
a
is
great
it going to
question.
be separate?
They're separate. And
Okay.
actually that's a wonderful question. Leads me into one of my other updates, which is about ARBNet, which is next on the list. So ARBNet is the interactive community of Arboretum, or Arboreta, I should say, that's plural for Arboretum. And the idea is that we, essentially I'm working on the application for ARBNet level 1. So there's 4 different levels that you can achieve. The 4th is for research type arboretums that are affiliated with the university. So we're not looking to achieve that level, but there is a progression, level 1, level 2, level 3. So this application that I'm putting together will be submitted in the next month or so. And I'm hoping by the new year, the first quarter, to share some really great news with you about achieving that ARBNet level 1 status. So what does that mean for us? It means that we're drawing more attention to this amazing resource that we have, cultural, public health resource, aesthetic resource, right? It's a really beautiful place. So I'm very excited about that. I'll be working hard on that. And certainly will update you. And then, this is super exciting, plant collections database. So we received, a private donor had graciously donated some funding for a plant collections database so I can better manage our existing plants and their records so we can keep them in the best shape. But the missing piece was for you all, the public, to be able to engage with the collection. And not just us Western New Yorkers, but everyone, right? We want to draw attention to this amazing resource from across the country, internationally. So essentially, in the new year, I expect probably at the latest by Q2 for you all to be able to hop on our website, the BOPC website, and from there you will be able to be directed to our plant collections database. look at all of our 1,200 plus trees. So it's a great learning opportunity. I know many of you have grandchildren or children, or maybe you yourself are interested in trees, hopefully. So that's super exciting. There'll also be more information about the Arboretum, but it's, once again, like all of this work is meant to further advance the restoration of the Arboretum. And
Okay, I have
yes,
a question. How do you access the Arboretum when it's also a golf course?
great
And not
question.
get hit with a golf ball?
Great question. So I think many of you heard me from the back, but when Brian was talking about the golf clubhouse restoration, I had chimed in that the golf course was not part of the original plan that Olmsted laid out. However, we value the addition of that golf course in 1915, and it's still an active park. So if you remember the phases that I mentioned at the beginning of my talk here, there are 11 total restoration phases. So the first 6 phases that have been approved by the city of Buffalo, our partner, and us do not include removing the golf course. So we're not there yet. But to answer your question, certainly, we have found days before me, Brian held many public meetings, and that was a concern that came up in terms of stray golf balls. We can continue to work on that with the public, but hopefully does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, I just can see a lot of like angry golfers, like, get out of the way, I'm trying to shoot the ball, and you're standing there looking at a tree. I just don't see, you know what I mean? It's
So
they're gonna.
A lot of
fight.
it's,
They're
may I
gonna
ask-
argue.
a lot of it's not where there's golf.
Oh, really?
It's
Oh,
still on
yeah,
one
yeah.
hole, actually.
That's
Walking
correct.
Ring Road.
And people are walking there and jogging and riding the bicycles now. And
Your
They're around the
website's
circle, though, they're
really
not
good.
in the golf
Sure.
course.
I recommend you go to the website.
Just like across
South
the
Park
street.
Lake.
Okay.
Just take a look.
Yeah,
And
it's-
it
May I
has
ask
the
your
article.
name?
Oh, my name is Jean.
Jean, thank you so much for that question. So I want to point out that the work that we're doing, your question is a great one, because the work that we're doing in terms of the phasing is very strategic in terms of protecting our park goers, patrons, everyone. That's why the first phase is improving overall safety of the park. We pruned over 500 trees, we removed hazardous branches, that type of thing. But the way that we're growing our collection, or trees that people will be closely looking at, inspecting, engaging with, those are along the perimeter of Ring Road, so on the outside where golf is not
Oh, okay.
happening. But I really appreciate that question, because it's certainly a concern. So that's what I have. Any other final questions? Okay, well, my pleasure to be with you, and looking forward to giving you more updates soon.
All right, thank you. So again, just in the last few minutes, we'll zip through, again, where we are with brief updates, again, reference back to the handout, and we can dive back in. The projects without significant updates at this point in time. Zipping through them. So the CAS Pathways project, as you know, is what I announced at the last meeting. The city had to go back and reopen some of the permitting, working with DEC and Army Corps. They are still waiting to get that permit approved to begin construction. And what Steve told me is if they really don't get that done by the end of this month, that project will likely spill into 2023. But there is still 2 to 3 weeks time that if things fall into place, they'll be able to wrap that project up before the end of the year.
So they're gonna rebuild that sidewalk that goes along the creek.
The pathway,
The
yep, where you can see that it's currently gravel,
Right.
it'll get paved. Basically, the project got stopped while it was in the
Why
middle
was it removed?
of construction. It was
'Cause it was
getting
a mess.
reconstructed. And basically, all the asphalt was in rough shape, so it was a reconstruction project.
Well, what's gotta be done
Unreal.
yet on it?
Hmm?
What has to be done to finish that up yet? Just the
Asphalt. Just the asphalt.
And that takes all this while?
No, what happens now is getting the permit approved
asphalt?
by,
It's because of the Army Corps of Engineers and making sure with flooding and things like that, the floodplain, everything's squared away, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Yes, basically almost on the same grade, isn't it? And it was originally.
Can I,
Yep,
can
it's
I
still up.
guess, can I guess that our record said you shouldn't have done any of this before the permits? And if they said, you know what, put those steps back, they were part of the spillway process?
I don't know what the Army Corps has reported. I think we'll find out when they issue their final report in terms of what it is in terms of resolving the issue. But currently, project is just put the brakes on, get this evaluation done, and it will either alter the project moving forward or just get it back to completion. So yet to see. But that's unfortunately, all the information I have as of today. Moving forward, the city is doing an assessment of the casino building. So they have their consultants on board. They are going to be on site in the coming weeks. They'll be developing their preliminary report by the end of the year. So I will be able at the next meeting to provide a summary of, again, sort of their analysis of the building and its current condition. That is important because it sort of helps us lay the stage for what we can do with the building moving forward. But it is just an assessment of the building in its current state and what needs to happen. South Park Ring Road. So still in the point of at the point of working with the city on finalizing a recommendation. The Department of Public Works, I think, is anticipating filing a recommendation to the Common Council in the coming weeks, probably into early November. And once that is issued, I'll be able to sort of fill people in on what's entailed. But at this point in time, it's still under analysis.
Under analysis of the what?
For what is like the long term, like right now.
Like keep it just pedestrians only?
Exactly,
Okay.
yes, sorry, I fill you in, like, the closing of the ring road was a COVID decision.
Right.
And what they're trying to decide is what is gonna be the long-term configuration.
Hopefully it's in
Tied to the ring road is the South Park Bridge. The city has gotten over $2 million in funding to reconstruct that bridge. That project is currently sitting at New York State Department of Transportation to finalize design. But they're still anticipating 2023 construction, assuming everything continues to fall into place with detailed design over the winter, which I'll be able to bring to this group. But right now it's sitting with the state. There's our beautiful South Park Bridge. We have an RFP out right now for the first phase of refreshing all of our park signs. So as we get our responses back and move forward with a consultant, that should be starting to actually turn into a real project by the next month. That'll be kicking off and working its way through into next year. So that's all the sort of brief updates at this point in time. Just wrapping around on a couple park issues. We did hear back from the city that based on a community concern about the speeding on the south side of Warrenspun Road, specifically as it approaches the bridge over the creek around that bend where pedestrians do cross regularly. The city is going to install additional speed humps on this side of the bridge to sort of keep that traffic slowed down. So I think everyone knows where the last speed hump is and just sort of gives it a kick to get through the park. So that is a case. I was going to confirm this with Greg, but forgot to. I think the benches have been installed. The benches have not been installed.
Yeah, I don't.
One.
Yeah.
They've been sitting up there.
I'm pretty sure they're on
in the
site.
building
Yeah, they're-
Once, and they haven't put them in. One.
Oh man, he let me come in front of this group.
That's why he didn't come. 'Cause he knows-
Okay, well, they are there. I know that the locations have been
What's the holdup?
identified.
There is-
Honestly,
there's no good reason.
my mistake that I
They-
thought it
they-
happened.
They installed one, it took maybe 2 hours.
Right. All right, well, I'll
Fancy
give everybody
boy.
an answer on,
Oh.
on
This is a
that.
drill in.
I apologize that, that is, I guess it's probably on someone's to-do list and just yet to be done. This is again, something that we're just keeping tabs on, but, the conversation about the Mulroy Monument, no action taken, but,
Where is that?
working on that.
It's at the,
That's right in front of the golf clubhouse.
yeah.
It's a monument to
And it has
baseball.
nothing to do with golf.
It's a baseball monument.
Yeah, so it's been identified by the Arts Commission for over 40 years as being potentially worth relocating. But it just hasn't ever turned into action, so it's been raised as a sort of a sightline issue from.
It's in front of that
people.
golf course building. you
Yeah.
were
Right,
talking about
yeah.
earlier?
In front of the clubhouse,
Oh.
yeah.
That's a kid.
It's-
This one's a kid.
This is the one.
Oh,
I
It should be
yes.
on,
What's, I never saw
Awning that you
that
mentioned?
awning.
No, so
Oh,
this
okay.
is
This is
different.
different.
Yeah, this
This is
is
different part.
different
Oh,
golf
sorry.
course. Yeah, that was South Park
Thank
Clubhouse.
you.
This is Cas Park Clubhouse.
Oh.
So that remains on one of the burners, but we're working with the Arts Commission on there. So with that sort of works us through all of our topics for the day. So as usual, with the last 10 minutes, sort of open up the floor to any questions or comments of the day.
What's a question? If you don't mind going back a couple pictures, I can speak to
what?
There's a
the
great photo,
Arboretum.
an overview
Photo.
of the Arboretum. And it would help some of, oh, you passed
Right.
it.
Oh, you want, oh,
The
That
map.
that one,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Do you mind if I just point out what, and I'm sorry. may
Oh,
I ask
where?
Art? Art, okay. Art had asked for the distinction of what's arboretum versus what's botanical land. So this is kind of my rough estimate, but it's about 11 acres. So this is the botanical garden. Just to orient you, this is South Park Avenue. Here's the botanical garden parking lot. This is botanical gardens footprint. And basically they own the land surrounding here. So it's about 11 acres. And then the entire rest of this is arboretum. Does that help?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Okay.
It should
And then
just have-
the building you were talking about was right over that triangle is.
Yes, so right over it here. In this section. So the library is down in this area.
Yeah.
And the
I don't
proposed
think
nursery complex would be here.
I'll talk about my own ignorance. I mean, it's hard. I think most people don't distinguish between botanical gardens and the arboretum. And knowing that the arboretum is all of that would help your efforts in raising funding, to be honest,
Sure.
'Cause I don't think that people realize that's the county's little patch of land and the rest of that is the arboretum.
Yeah, we,
Now you know, get your checkbook out.
I think how many acres is it? 'Cause
it's
I can go a diamond acre.
156.
A
I
good diamond
will,
acre.
I would like to share to Art's point, that really, I think the crux of it is that there is an opportunity for working with our communications team, which we have our lovely Z here with us tonight. And they are working on getting the word out regarding the Arboretum and that we do in fact have one. And Z, I think you could probably speak to it better than me, but that is an ongoing effort in terms of awareness. But I definitely value that point. It is an ongoing learning opportunity that, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, to Margaret's, oh, sorry.
While you're up there, in the back corner, there's like a service road. And obviously it's where they dump dead green stuff from the botanical gardens, but it seems like it's kind of become a public dumping ground too. It's kind of a mess. back
On
there.
On
Hopkins Street, maybe?
No,
Hopkins
so
It's off the
if
main
you
road.
follow, you can't see the back.
Yeah,
It's back
right
in
there.
there.
Right there.
And
Just to the right of Hopkins.
yeah.
in the past, there's been everything from safes that people rob, old cars.
How do they get,
It's kind of cleaned
how
up.
do they get back there?
It's a road.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
a.
it's
so
not
hopefully
open
now-
anymore, is it?
Hopefully now that's a problem of the past, because
Yeah.
vehicles currently are.
Yeah,
are
they're
stopped back here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but just,
Yeah, as we-
I'm just curious, like, why don't we have, like in West Seneca where you recycle stuff like that?
Still in sight?
Yeah, compost
Christmas
facility.
trees
So currently the way the city manages yard waste is through, they have a contract with a private company where the city, any city resident can bring unlimited amounts of green waste to there.
Yeah.
Where is
Yeah,
it?
you just sign your, it's
It's on
it's
Babcock, I
yeah,
think,
on
right?
Babcock
Yeah,
and
I
Dorothy
use it. It's
Street.
pretty neat.
And is it composted?
It's called Geeter Dunn,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Interesting name, but yeah, it's to bring that and they do compost and they'll sell you compost right back.
Okay.
From there, so it's not a city service. And actually, I mean, what, not speaking on behalf of the city's rationale, but like Amherst decommissioned their facility. That was a really, what I thought was a pretty well working one, and they decided to sell it off, to privatize. So it as they say, the juice might not be worth the squeeze in terms of there, but yeah, in terms of dumping green waste or twigs or branches, there is a place you can always bring that and get good compost, from what I understand. Yes.
I just wanted to say that the security that the Olmsted Conservancy hired for the gas park and the golf course for the summer, I believe that's where the funding came from, right, for those two individuals?
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I wish I knew the answer in terms of exactly where that.
Okay,
where
well,
that funding
the
came
point
from.
being is it just made for such a wonderful summer that all of the foot traffic that we experience in our driveway that think our driveway is access to the park, which it's not, it's a private property. But the security made such a big difference in terms of no vandalism on the golf course and minimal vandalism in the park. And it just, whatever money they had to spend for the security, I'm sure they saved in, having to fix and repair the damage that usually occurs.
Well, kids had brand new place to drink though.
I don't know where they went.
So the
but
kids weren't drinking over there?
No.
I don't know where they
Wow.
went, but
Chase
it
away?
was such a wonderful summer.
What's
They're not drinking there, they're
I mean,
drinking
I
in the
know
park.
it's
It's very
Along the creek.
Yeah.
through this process. I
I
know
hear
as
'em.
concerns are identified, we put on our thinking caps and figure out how we can solve these problems. So it's great to hear that it was an effective.
And I mentioned that the last time that they were doing a good job.
Yeah, good.
Once they know there's security there, they stay away.
So,
Yes.
Stephanie Crockett, our executive director, who's on the Zoom, mentioned that the security came out of the budget for the Conservancy. So knowing that
It came out of the budget for the
for the
concern.
Conservancy, so like we allocated, so money came out of it to be prioritized, and we're glad that it's working. So we definitely keep that in mind for future.
Please.
You might want to expand it to the parks if there's a new playground in too. Because,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing partnership, hiring private security is pretty expensive way to solve these problems. So again, as we
So is
can
vandalism.
collaborate and, oh, certainly, absolutely. So it's it's about meeting the needs is really what the Conservancy is about, partnership with the city and all the other agencies. So glad that's been working well.
And bringing up the playground and security and things like that, talking to whether playground architects or people within our parks department, one thing they do, in a lot of the playgrounds right now, they're seeing people setting up shop inside any of the pieces of the playground equipment that have covers on them. So one thing they're looking at is trying to avoid maybe doing anything that has covers on, so you're not getting people setting up shop in there.
Yeah.
Make it more safe.
Kids will love that.
You mean like homeless people and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, we went to the one in Dorrance and
Yeah.
my granddaughter was climbing up the thing else and I'm like, I saw like their feet, like two guys were like laying up there. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, Andy, come down. I was like, I don't know if they have needles or.
Yeah.
I was like, it was weird. I was like, oh my God. And she was gonna go down the slide and I saw the people waiting there. So weird.
Not the point I was gonna raise, but there certainly has been an increase in people sleeping overnight on the park benches in the gas park. I've seen more this year than I say my 6 prior years of walking through the park combined. But my point is different. I greatly appreciate that we are in the Irish heritage community here, and I'm glad that Cass Park has the Irish Festival, etc. But What I notice is every year that the Irish related flags, the various, is it counties, provinces, whatever, stay up for weeks and weeks and weeks. And my point is going to be that what I've seen is that this neighborhood has become more diverse, even in the 7-year period that I'm in. And I've even seen people from Singapore walking in Cass Park. We have I never see anything to in any way show honor or joy about all the other cultural groups that we have using that park. An occasional senior citizen Italian American. There's obviously folks. There's folks coming from Lackawanna walking through the park. There's Hispanic, there's Black Americans, and the only thing we ever seem to honor in Cass Park is the Irish. And I'm not complaining about honoring the Irish, but I'm just want to point out that as far as diversity goes, that's the only group that is expressly being welcomed by flags and things that are hanging on the street.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's also a separate entity that does it. It's not Olmsted, it's not the city of Buffalo that puts those festivals on. So those are separate entities that do it. Then request permission to put the flags up in that. They were up longer this year. There was a miscommunication. Someone thought one person took them down, one other person thought the other person took them down. So they're up longer this year than typical. But the Irish Festival, for example, while they receive some support, but it's a private entity, a specific nonprofit that handles that.
The flags were up last year long and the year before also. I mean, it wasn't just this year, but it's nice to know it's private, but they're hanging those flags on city property. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying that there's nothing that symbolizes, hey, we're glad that we have this grown, richer cultural diversity amongst our party.
Yeah, I know. So we didn't really advertise, but she's gotten a promotion where she is focused on engagement and inclusion. So we are keeping sort of elevating that effort within the organization. But like the council member says, a lot of these things are sort of driven by the energy of someone who wants to plan an event in a park, and everyone is welcome to do that. So maybe we can find a way to partner and sort of elevate, someone who would be interested in sort of celebrating all cultures and do all the energy in celebrating it.
Our former city controller used to have an annual a South Buffalo Italian American festival, if I recall correctly. The first year or two that I was living in South Buffalo.
All right.
Thank you.
With that, thanks. And again, anything, again, please keep sending things into me and Z. And we will be circling back with next steps at next meetings. As you're walking out, you don't have to stick around for this, but we are sort of starting to explore potentially other formats for these meetings. So, as we like to come together in the room, but we will continue to explore whether there's some more formal newsletters, maybe some Zoom meetings as it gets, bad weather or really good weather. It is sometimes tough to get people in the room. So
I thought you were going to say stick around for snacks or something.
Oh, well, I think there are donuts on the big
Offer
table.
food,
there.
offer food, people come.
Thanks, everybody.
He doesn't sure we want him back or what.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sometimes they're good.
Really bad.
Yeah, it's so I can't think of what you think.
The problem with that is tropical plants, so then they would live in our greenhouse. We're pretty packed in terms of the space to grow out our plant material to get out of the park. That might be a better, they actually invite people in that sort of look at certain things, so that might be a better. Yeah.
They're probably, it's been a while, but that's where I get to work, so.
That is a cool.
Oh, it's a great beach.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Thank you. It was great. Yeah, it was great.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Great meeting.
Good to see you.
Huh? Right. And there's just nobody who wants to touch.
I mean, hopefully she grows as much comfort as possible.
Gas is the best. And the good part of it is, the men's, I'm in the seniors, but the men's. Nice job.
That's middle age being, I'm sure the things is being pulled. I really wasn't, when you said it, it took me a moment. Make sure they can do it. Then I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that I would say you gotta really look past to see. Oh, that is really good. This character, there's so many scripts in that way.
I didn't know, can't remember, but make sure that I should say the same. They're my modest home, I'm not sure. Somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then the other day.
To me now, it's one of the few amenities other than gas park. I can't think of it. I'm such a share. So here's the shimmering rainbows on the walls from the sunshine, and I'm just so thrilled.
Yeah, that's great. It's still there. It's like it sort of goes to, when you don't have resources to remodel.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how long it was today. No, there's no. There are times when I'm facing this. It's dark because it's getting over this. Right? No, I'm sure that's right. But anyway, I can't wait to do strip those walls.
Yeah.
I can give it a little bit more about.
I would encourage, like, everybody goes to, actually, we still need to fundraise for that phase anyways, so you've got time, but it definitely gets a sense of
In here, we have our collections.
Yeah, something, I know he made.
The nursery itself is
I've been drinking. I guess they're drinking.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Nice to meet you.
Thank
Keep
you
up
so
the good
much.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, thanks for the
You know where I
question.
live?
I just love all the questions.
And
Thank you for being here.
And I wanted to say something, but I can't because
I had to,
because
and
Z
I
is so,
agree.
because
He's
Z
very
is so
humble.
humble.
I know. It was like, I thought it was at the fair. I never called. And then somebody took the house back. And now they're back.
Coming here in person. Okay, we tell her that?
I never called, but.
She actually just came in from out of town.
It's not an excuse. And it's the older
See you
kids are
later.
back there later. I don't know what you do. No, Billy Webster's moving the calls all the time. I mean, there's just like, you usually go to these. But these security guys are good. I understand they ganged up on them. So now they're doubled up now, I guess. So they.
It's made a difference.
Oh, there's no doubt, because like I said, I'm over it all the time. What a difference, Plus, you don't have to worry about it. I'm destroying like the fountain.
Yeah.
That's another thing. They took them until. I'll move in the middle of July.
I left the flyers at the front. Do you think that's, you can take them when they come in here?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, I understand.
I meant to, I brought the flyer up and I meant to like. say
I know, I was
something,
going
and
to
then I
say
forgot.
about it, like when the guy was saying about the awareness. when the guy was saying about awareness, you should come to the lecture, the talk.
Yeah, that would have been. perfect.
I would definitely share it with the
That's number 9.
group, this.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't think of the word
I mean, not because of the irrigation systems don't work. over.
You know, like, oh, I don't know, I was telling Greg earlier that. I don't think you've ever had this. Like,
Yeah,
there's certain weeks where like
You know,
words
they should
just
give 'em
escape me.
Sure.
Or they're out of my brain, like, what's wrong with the synapses? Or, like, they need to be firing. This stays here.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Good to see you. I'll see you. Yeah, what? It's really warm too.
Oh my gosh.
Seriously, this weather, I feel like it's a necessity.
Too funny.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Drive home safe.